Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be looking at, does alcohol kill your gains? So let's get right into it, with the short answer being yes, alcohol does kill your gains. But I want to dive into what the negative effects of alcohol are and how alcohol impacts your body. So what are the major negative effects of alcohol on the body? So we know that consumption of alcohol can lead to weight gain, it can prohibit muscle growth, as well as slow down or prohibit muscle recovery. So I'm going to explain how the consumption of alcohol can lead to these major negative effects. From these major negative effects on the body, I want to break down and list out some of the other effects that alcohol has on your body. So let's look at how alcohol disrupts your recovery, as well as just some other negative effects from alcohol consumption. We have the disruption of metabolism as well as protein synthesis. We have the inhibition of signals that are responsible for muscle building, and we have insulin resistance. There's also different effects between men versus women, and we'll get into that later. And then we also have decreased testosterone. So these are really negative effects, and I have another slide of negative effects that we're going to go into, as well as the studies that will be linked down below in the description that all these bullet points have came from. So let's get into breaking these points down and also help you better understand the effects of alcohol on your body. So when you consume alcohol, your body will metabolize it, and you wind up having two byproducts. One being an energy source, which is known as acetyl-CoA, with the other being a toxin, which is known as ethanol. And when you consume alcohol, your body will cease its normal metabolic functions to promote an environment of getting rid of the ethanol and breaking down the alcohol for the acetyl-CoA, and using acetyl-CoA as the only energy source. So when this happens, this means that your lunch, your dinner, your calories that came in, your carbs and fats and proteins that came in from your good lunch, your good dinner, you have a good diet, but it doesn't matter, because when you consume alcohol, your body is not going to be focused on breaking those good quality macros down and getting nutrients out of it and getting energy from that, because it's trying to get rid of the toxin that you have put in the body. So when you drink alcohol, you are poisoning yourself, and you are disrupting not only your metabolic functions and pathways, but also inhibiting protein synthesis. So you're creating a catabolic state. And the other thing that comes from this is when your fat and your glucose can no longer be used for energy because it's using acetyl-CoA from the alcohol, it's going to promote an environment to store that fat and that glucose. Because after it gets rid of the acetyl-CoA, there's no more acetyl-CoA for it to use as energy. Then it will go back. You'll revert your metabolic pathways back into what they normally would be. And then it'll start using the glucose and the fat. Your body cannot afford to break down the good nutrients, no matter how good your diet is, when alcohol is present, because alcohol will be a priority due to its toxic nature of the byproduct of ethanol. So that's how it disrupts your metabolism. Now let's go into how it disrupts your protein synthesis. So disruption of protein synthesis, with protein synthesis being the synthesis of new muscle, the building of new muscle, you're going to wind up having alcohol disrupt those signals that promote protein synthesis to occur. So when those are disrupted, you're going to inhibit protein synthesis from occurring, so muscle growth, muscle synthesis will cease. So most of us already know what insulin is. Insulin is released by your body to really regulate glucose in your blood, and it's also released to break down not only glucose, but as well as the carbohydrates you consume, which we know that carbohydrates, you always hear carbohydrates are going to wind up becoming sugars, which is glucose. And so insulin will break down the carbohydrates into glucose and then maintain the glucose in your blood. But when you drink alcohol with limited absorbability coming from the insulin resistance, you're going to have less muscle growth and recovery. So going back to the men versus women, we're looking at the effects of alcohol on protein synthesis. And in this one study, they looked at not only rats, but as well as humans. And after the consumption of alcohol, the male rats were more likely to have effects on protein synthesis pathways than female rats, with female rats showing little to no reaction. Going into human studies, they found similar findings. So this means that male individuals are going to have a greater effect after the consumption of alcohol on their protein synthesis pathways. This does not mean that women are exempt from the negative effects of alcohol, however. This just means that women have less likely chance of having their protein synthesis pathways disrupted from the presence of alcohol. And before we move into decreased levels of testosterone, let's look into another study with protein synthesis pathways comparing men and women. So in another study, they looked at the effects of alcohol on physically active males. From this study, There was found to be a significant reduction in muscle protein synthesis up to 37% when 1.5 grams per kilogram of alcohol was consumed after exercise. Even when 20 to 30 grams of protein were consumed to try to counteract the consumption of alcohol, muscle protein synthesis was still reduced by 24%. So that means that the consumption of protein can help decrease the reduction you're already getting from muscle protein synthesis disruption. So it does help to have protein following alcohol consumption, but you're still not going to outrun the negative effects of alcohol no matter how much protein you consume. However, the consumption of some protein is better than consumption of no protein. You can limit some of the negative effects from the consumption of alcohol. So this 37% reduction in muscle protein synthesis is going to be for a man weighing about 160 pounds and having about 8 drinks. And for our final study comparing men versus women, we're looking at men and women that consume alcohol following exercise, seeing if exercise plays any role in maybe reducing the effects of alcohol consumption and maybe promoting a more anabolic state. So this study found that alcohol affected the signaling pathways in men, but not women. This was following exercise. This was alcohol consumption after exercise. So exercise, not effective methods of reducing the negative impacts of alcohol consumption. However, for women, it should be noted that even though alcohol does not disrupt your muscle protein synthesis as much as it does in men, and it does not disrupt your signaling pathways as much as it does in men, women are more sensitive to drinking and are more likely to experience negative health effects in the long term than men. So even though the muscle protein synthesis and your signaling pathways are not as disrupted as they are for men, it still does not mean that you can just drink freely without any repercussions, especially considering how women are just more likely to wind up having health complications down the road that are related to chronic drinking. Alcohol is known to decrease testosterone. One of the studies in male rats showed that alcohol had a significant effect on the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal system. So not only did it lower testosterone levels, but it decreased sperm production and altered the reproductive hormone levels. Another study showed that consumption of 40 grams of alcohol had no effect on testosterone. However, when 150 grams of alcohol was consumed, testosterone was reduced by 23%. This 23% drop in your testosterone levels does not revert until 36 hours later. That means that you go a day and a half with 23% of your testosterone being reduced after having at least 150 grams of alcohol. So if this wasn't enough negative effects after consuming alcohol, let's look at some more. So going on, we have increased cortisol, increased estrogen, decreased HGH, decreased luteinizing hormone, increases chance of dehydration, lack of quality sleep, and increased hunger. So increase in cortisol, you may be like, okay, so what? Cortisol is a hormone. Cortisol is a hormone. Cortisol is also known as the stress hormone. So when you are more stressed, your cortisol levels are going to be higher than when you are calm and relaxed. So when drinking alcohol, your cortisol levels are going to increase. Now, the reason why your testosterone levels are probably more prone to decreasing, when your cortisol levels are high, it prevents and inhibits testosterone from binding, specifically your free testosterone. So you are losing the effects of having good testosterone levels by not only drinking, but being in a stressful environment. So the higher your cortisol levels are, the lower your testosterone will be, and the less your body can properly utilize that testosterone. That's why it's so important for even everyday life to reduce as much stress as possible, to keep your cortisol levels as low as possible. That way your body can utilize testosterone as much as possible. Alcohol also increases estrogen, which estrogen is mostly found in women. Women have high levels of estrogen. Estrogen promotes breast tissue. If you have a lot of estrogen, you might be more prone to having man boobs or moobs, as most people know them. And you may notice that people around you that are chronic drinkers do have a little more weight than normal. And they may also have more soft breast tissue. And that's probably from higher estrogen levels and decreased testosterone levels. Because when your testosterone levels come back from that 23% drop from drinking alcohol, that's after 36 hours without alcohol. If you continuously drink, that reduction may even get more significant or at least stay the same. Alcohol decreases your HGH, which is also known as human growth hormone. And human growth hormone is exactly what it means. It is a hormone that promotes growth. And some of you may know that enhanced bodybuilders, powerlifters may inject HGH. They may inject extra growth hormone to reap the benefits of it. So you are reducing your natural HGH by consuming alcohol and thus hindering your potential for maximum recovery or muscle growth. Alcohol also decreases your luteinizing hormone, which in turn also promotes the decrease of testosterone. So alcohol is also known as a diuretic. And so with alcohol being known as a diuretic, we're going to go into the dehydration aspect of it. So alcohol is known as diuretic because it not only affects all these other hormones in your body, but it also affects vasopressin, which is a hormone that regulates how much water you excrete. This is why you probably know from experience when you drink, you have frequent urination. And that's not only from your body trying to get rid of the toxin ethanol and get it out of your system, but it's also because alcohol is disrupting your vasopressin. And that's why you frequently urinate. And if you are dehydrated, not only are you promoting, less muscle growth, less muscle protein synthesis, but when you wake up the next day, you're probably going to have a horrible hangover. And if you have a bad enough hangover, most of you know that you're probably not going to go to the gym because you'll feel like shit. So if you drink enough, you're prone to missing your workout, and plus you mess up your recovery. You mess up your maximum potential for recovery and muscle protein synthesis, which is growth. So going into other hormones that alcohol disrupts your leptin hormone, which is also known as a feeling full hormone. So when leptin is decreased, your hunger is increased. And so this goes out when you go out to a bar, or, if you're having to get together with friends, you may find that you're grabbing the unhealthy foods. You may be eating a little bit more than normal. And that's because your body cannot really tell when it's completely full. And so you may be completely full, had a good dinner, started drinking, and then you get hungry again 1 to 2 hours after you had your last meal. And so this causes you to overeat, overindulge in food, and the extra calories, especially if this is a frequent occurrence of you going out and drinking, you eating a little too much, you will wind up putting on extra weight, and you may even become obese or fat. Alcohol is also known to reduce the quality of sleep you get, especially deep sleep. And there's really strong correlation between the quality of sleep you get and how much muscle you can put on, how much muscle growth you have, how much muscle recovery you have. And if you want to look at the vast effects of sleep on muscle growth and recovery, look at my other YouTube video on that. I recommend sleeping no less than 7 hours, because anything less than 7 hours, you're looking at negative side effects. And when you drink, you're not going to get that quality sleep, and you may have to sleep for 10 hours to even get enough quality sleep to make up for the effect of having alcohol disrupting your normal sleep pattern and not being able to get enough deep sleep and stay in deep sleep, especially REM sleep. So sleep is the most important time for your body to repair and recover itself. And when you drink alcohol, you're going to reduce the quality of sleep you have. So there's another reduction in muscle recovery and muscle protein synthesis right there. From these studies and the negative effects that I've listed, we can conclude that alcohol consumption suppresses and significantly reduces muscle growth and recovery. So I'm not saying to completely avoid alcohol and never have a fun night again. I'm just saying to do it in moderation. And with moderation, you can limit the negative impacts of alcohol on your body. So let's go into how much is safe to consume. According to the research that I've looked at, it came out to be about 0.5 grams of alcohol per kilogram of body weight. So if you stay within this range, there won't be significant negative effects of alcohol consumption. But for someone weighing 120 pounds, it's going to equivalent to about 2 drinks. So ideally, consuming 0.5 grams of alcohol per kilogram won't reverse all the hard work you've done in the gym and won't hinder you if done so every so often and not regularly. If it's done regularly, you may have significant negative impacts on your gym life, on your gym progress, on your fitness progress, whatever you may be doing. You may be really holding yourself back. However, if you increase the 0.5 grams of alcohol to, let's say, 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, you're looking at serious impacts and negative consequences that can follow, especially from prolonged drinking. So going back to the study I mentioned earlier, 1.5 grams of alcohol per kilogram resulted in 37% reduction of muscle protein synthesis. And so that's going to be about 8 drinks for someone weighing about 160 pounds. So you can look at those studies for yourselves in the description below. And I'm not saying never have a drink again, but I'm saying if you do so in moderation. Limit how many drinks you have control over it, and if you do go overboard, be sure you're getting some protein in to help negate some of the negative effects that are going to occur. But now that you know the negative effects that occur and how they occur, now you can move forward in the future with reducing the amount of alcohol you consume, as well as preventing some of the negative effects from occurring. That's my final piece of advice. I hope this video is informational to you. Here's my references. They're going to be linked in the below. If you have any questions, comment them. I'll be glad to get back with you. I hope you have a good morning, a good night, and I'll see you in the next one.